Peace, YouTube. So the next entry is going to be about Master Roshi and sexual transmutation. So if you followed my channel before, I speak a lot about sexual energy and spiritual energy and how to really use it to benefit yourself. And Master Roshi is a really good example because Master Roshi represents a good portion of men in that he has not learned how to control his lust. Master Roshi is in Dragon Ball, you know what I'm saying? Throughout most of the series, Master Roshi is a straight up pervert. Even though he's a martial arts master, even though he's very powerful, even though he's very disciplined, there's one thing that he has not learned how to control, and that is his lust. So when it comes to Master Roshi, he is a prime example, and they've mentioned this too throughout many Vedic traditions. If you read the book Practice of Brahmacharya, and if you also read the book, Mantak Chia's book, Cultivating Male Sexual Energy, he talks about, both of them talk about how controlling the release of a man's seed is one of the hardest things a man can do, but it is actually one of the most beneficial things, if not the most beneficial thing that he can do. So that whole semen retention thing is very beneficial if you can learn how to do it and actually transmute the energy. If you're just doing it and you're not transmuting the energy, it's not really doing a whole lot for you. So you have to come to an understanding of how your sexual energy works. And Master Roshi was a good example because he can teach Goku all these things, right? But without a master of his own lust or some sort of control, not being a slave to his own lust, Master Roshi is still limited. He's still at the whims of his own lust, and that means he can be controlled. And you've seen this throughout the series where, you know, women have used his lust against him in Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, all the way up until Dragon Ball Super, where he actually trains to let go of this lust. And when he lets go of the lust, he evolves and becomes much more powerful. He's able to compete in the tournament of power. You see this nigga Master Roshi is a G in Dragon Ball Super, and I would say that's the mindset and the mentality and the actions that young men and even older men should embody. You know, controlling your lust, and this is lust for anything, because let's be real, anyone who's sitting in front of you telling you that they've mastered their lust more than likely hasn't done it. You know, and if they have done it, they have to, I'm not saying they have to prove themselves, you know, everybody's on their own journey, but if they have done it, they wouldn't brag so much about it, because it's not an easy thing to do. You know, everybody, myself included, struggles with lust in some type of form. It's just it's a condition that you experience as a part of the human experience. Regardless, you know, there's two things that people struggle with, really, mainly. It's lust and ego. That's a part of being human. You're always gonna lust for more. Crime occurs simply because people lust for more. Whether it's kidnapping, that's lust. Whether it's robbing, that's lust. Lust for more, that's greed. You know, whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, you could really boil everything down to lust. At the end of the day, it's still the same thing in a different shade. And it's also fear, because when you lust for something, you also fear not having it. And if anyone's taking a look at David R. Hawkins' book of Letting Go talks about fear is actually one of the lowest frequencies. It's I'm pretty sure it vibrates below 130 or at 130 hertz. So that's essentially where you're vibrating at when you're coming with fear. And then lust is about, I think it's about what, 20 hertz more than that. But lust is supposed to be a vehicle for you as a gateway to higher emotions, higher feelings, and higher consciousness. It's not really meant to be something that you get stuck in. When you're stuck in lust, you're stuck in your lower two chakras. You're thinking about your survival, and you're also thinking about, you know, your sexuality, your lower sexual energy, and how to use it. So Master Roshi, you know, in the tournament of power, Master Roshi, he spent days locked up fighting his lust. But see, here's the thing though. here's the thing though, and they talk about this in the Practice of Brahmacharya book, but he didn't run away from it. He didn't act like it wasn't there. No, what he did was he went through the fire. I think they trapped him with Puar, had Puar shapeshift into a girl, and Master Roshi was like going through that shit until like he just let go of it at some point. But he had to really release all that pent up lust, you know what I'm saying, of never really getting what he desired. You know, it just kept eluding him. And that's the thing with lust, because when you really lust after something, what you really want never comes to you. Because like I said, you're fearing not having it, and fear and lust will keep something away from you. Desire is really going to keep it away from you. That's just the way that it, you know, things work. You know, because like I said, when you want something, you already have the mindset that you don't have it. And spiritually, vibrationally, you're giving off the, even though you might genuinely want it, you're giving off the, I don't really think I deserve it. So that's why they tell you, you know, you want to act as if you already have the things that you want. You know what I'm saying? Act as if you already have the things that you need, you know, bring it into existence. You're not necessarily, you know, chase after, but you want to bring it into existence vibrationally through your actions, through your feelings, regulating your emotions about what it is that you really want. Because when you do those things, then it no longer controls you. The gist of this is really not to be controlled by what you want, but rather to control it into your life. You want to bring it into your life. You don't want it to bring you wherever it wants to bring you. Your body is going to lead you any which way that keeps you comfortable, any which way that makes you thirst for more. Because essentially, when you got to think about it like this, when you die, this body dies. The rest of you lives on with the same stuff and the same experiences, the same desires, everything. So there's a part of you that supersedes death. This body is primarily concerned about your natural instincts, and that is it. And your natural instinct is that of survival and that of procreation. So that is why, you know, your feelings of hunger exist. That is why your feelings of thirst and exist. That is why your feelings of lust, sexual lust, procreation lust exist. And that's why it's so powerful. It's to keep the human race going. You know, but if we all reproduced only for the or if we all had sex only to reproduce, that in and of itself would shut down that feeling. But that's not how humans operate. We all know that's not how humans operate. Let's just keep the book. But that's essentially what that book was saying. But without it, you just have a built up emotion. This is for women too. It's not just for men, right? Lust is something that everyone struggles with across the board. But what separates you from the rest of the animals is your ability to realize your spirituality. It's your ability to realize your higher power. And Practice of Brahmacharya says your ability to realize, you know, the only thing that separates humans and animals is Dharma, the ability to realize the Atman. So, and Dharma is really just your spiritual mission, your spiritual instinct, your spiritual tendency. That is the only thing that differs between humans and animals, because the only thing that separates humans from monkeys is the divine spark, essentially. So that divine spark, that soul within you, you have to cultivate that. If you focus on cultivating that, you cultivate all sorts of powers, but you have to really bring it into existence. It's not really something that anybody can really do for you. It's just something within you. You know, all these books, all these spiritual, you know, societies, ancient cultures, they were all talking about, seriously, you know, religions, and they were all talking about one thing, and that is the cultivation of the Father within you, the higher self. That is it. You know, and also, of course, transcending the human body. And until you can do that, you're always going to be a slave to the human body. That is why things like Gnosticism exist, where it explains that you being trapped in a human body, you're trapped there to feed, you know, a higher entity that is jealous of your divine spark. You know, that's why you forget when you reincarnate. because it just wants you to stay human with human desires and human aspirations, so that you never really truly realize your higher potential, where you don't need anything, where your higher self sustains you everything. It wants you to be enslaved to it. That is what Gnosticism talks about. So really take this into consideration. You becoming your journey as a man. Let's say you're a man and you struggle with sexual lust. You need to use Master Roshi as a symbol to get better. And I really like how Akira Toriyama closed out Master Roshi's story full circle like that, because Naruto did not do Jiraiya any justice. You know what I'm saying? And Jiraiya was essentially a similar character to Master Roshi. But Master Roshi, he starts off a certain way and he ends a certain way. There's actually real development, taking him from being, a martial arts master that suffers from perversion, and degeneracy, and, basically porn addiction too, taking him from that and bringing him to a whole new level of a warrior, slave to no desire. That letting go of that is so important. And it is exactly why I'll keep talking about nofap, semen retention, and sexual transmutation on my other channel and on this channel too. Just a little bit less here, just because there's different topics that we have to cover. I can't make this all about sexual transmutation and nofap and all that, because this channel there's more dimensions that we have to cover. But if you want more of that, I'm definitely moving all of that over to the Red Reams channel, so you got to check that out too. But essentially, yes, that's exactly what you should be doing as a man, as a woman. You should be learning how to control your sexual energy, because it's more than just releasing through the sex organs. If you release it throughout the rest of your body, or you retain it and you hold that sexual energy throughout the rest of your body, and then it starts to vibrate in your spirit. And now that it's vibrating in your spirit, your creativity, your natural creativity increases. So now that your natural creativity increases, you have more energy to put towards the things that you actually give a fuck about, like building something new, starting something new, whatever case may be. You could put that energy towards learning how to play an instrument. I just read a story the other day. A dude on semen retention, a dude on nofap, has put his sexual energy towards learning 10 different instruments, and he does that all day. That's exactly what your creative and your sexual energy could really do for you if you channel it properly. But you have to actually create a tunnel for it and use it properly. For me, I create a tunnel for it. I create a pathway for it, and I route it through these YouTube videos. I route it through learning, improving my art. I put it towards all sorts of things. I put it towards myself in the gym, my self-development, and also my spiritual growth and my spiritual learning too. That's why I'm always reading books, and especially towards, my studies too, outside of that as well, because I'm also in college. So, there's all sorts of things you could do with your sexual energy. You just have to learn how to control it. But the first thing you should do is educate yourself on it outside of my videos. This is exactly why I give sources to, so you can go ahead and do all the research that you need to do to make an informed decision and be like, you know what, this is for me, or you know what, this isn't for me. But in my personal opinion, if you saw how distracted Master Roshi really was with his lust, then you would know that's exactly what y'all niggas look like. You know what I'm saying? If you are a slave to your lust, that's exactly what you look like. That's, to other people, that's exactly what it seems like. And whether you might hold it in or not, you might vibrate that way. So really take that into consideration. If you don't want to be a Master Roshi anymore, and you wanted to be how he became in Dragon Ball Super, which is a fucking G, then you need to actually put that into practice. I'm just being real, because it was an inspiration for me too. Like I said, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I mastered it too. You know what I'm saying? But am I taking every step every day to master it? Yes. Like I've been on retention over a month now. Putting this into perspective, putting this in work. me just being clear. And that's what gives me, the motivation to really go forward. That and actually knowing how to use the energy, and spread it throughout the rest of my life. And I don't plan on stopping. So essentially that's the entry for Master Roshi. That's the entry for this part of the sexology series too, because if you learn how to control your lust, you can do absolutely anything in life. And in Practice Brahmacharya, it says there's no difference between a human and God once he learns how to control his lust. Because you got to think about it. A God doesn't lust for anything. He just creates. She just creates. They bring it into existence. They bring it to them. There is no lust once you realize the God within, because you don't have to lust. You're not a slave to your human desires. That's really lusting. That's really all it really is being a slave to your human desire. But when you become indifferent to it and you return to that childlike mindset about it, to where you're not acting weird just because you have an innate desire that's overpowering you. You know what I'm saying? But when you return to that childlike mindset where your innocence is back and you're just living life for the sweetness of life, then that's what makes you a God. Because now, and this is exactly why, children will be a great example for the mindset and the mentality that you need to embody, simply because of the fact that children don't have that about them. They don't have that overdeveloped ego, that gets in the way, that, and that all those overdeveloped desires. This is exactly why I remember Billy Carson. Billy Carson just put up a video of, kids talking about how when aliens visited them, they were telling them about pollution and shit, and to not get too technologically advanced. This is like back in the 90s. And I was wondering, I was like, why aliens visiting these little kids? And then it occurred to me, it was like, yo, aliens, these ETs, if they are going to visit anybody, they're not visiting no grown ass adult with an ego that's so focused on their career and all that shit. You know what I'm saying? A lot of adults, because they think they know everything, their egos are hyper inflated. So you also got these stories about these people making up stories about these aliens having sex with them. It's just not a thing. That's, to me, when I read that, all I hear is the human desires and the human ego. That's probably some shit. Some nigga went crazy and started talking about that. There's a lot of misinformation around here. But the reason why they visited children instead of visiting adults is because if you tell a child that and they air that on the news, the child's interview, instead of airing some adult talking about, oh, I saw aliens, blah, blah, no one gives a fuck, because they're either going to discount you as crazy, or they're just going to be like, all right, this nigga's just talking out his ass. But you interview a child is going to really tell the truth. They're not going to let their, and also children are more spiritually open and more spiritually inclined anyway, because the pineal gland hasn't shut down around that time. The imagination hasn't shut down around that time. So when they visit children are still having night terrors, still seeing spirits in the rooms, because their third eye is wide open. Their chakras aren't shut down, like they are during puberty or in adulthood. Their chakras aren't shut down. So they're visiting the right people. They're telling them the right message, because they know if they tell children that message, they're not going to dilute it with their own human bullshit and whatever other messages they're going to tell them. Because I'm pretty sure ETs, they're not coming back and they're just telling humans about pollution and some shit niggas already know about. They're probably telling them all sorts of things. And people who are also spiritually inclined that have learned to shut down the ego when they take in spiritual information are also being visited. So essentially this is where that will lead you to. This is where sexual transmutation will lead you to. It'll bring you back to that. As long as you stay educated, you stay on top of your shit, you stay on your spiritual grind. If you're not really doing the spiritual work, I promise you, you're just going to keep relapsing. You're just going to keep being a slave to your lust, because you have to have a spiritual discipline to really make this work for you. Because how else are you going to transmute sexual energy if you don't really believe in where sexual energy comes from, which is a spirit? If you don't really have any spiritual inclination, you can transmute sexual energy religious if you wanted to. You can transmute sexual energy if you're religious, but if you also do spiritual work outside of religion too, then it'll help benefit your life. Definitely. So I would say take a look into that. I'm gonna drop the sources in the description for you. That way you can do your own research and also learn the techniques that I learned to transmute my sexual energy as well, and put it towards the rest of my life and the work of my life. So wish you all the best with that. Peace.